What's a valuable piece of information you want to share? Story 1. The most important piece of information you can give 911 is where you are, followed by what the problem is. Even if no other information is given, someone can still be sent to a location to see what the problem is. Bonus: if you accidentally call 911, just stay on the line and tell them it was an accident. It happens a lot. They won't be mad. If you hang up, they have to call you back. That is irritating. One time when I was like 14, I was home alone taking a shower. I heard banging sounds and got freaked out. I was paranoid that someone was trying to break in, or maybe was already inside. So I went around the house searching all potential hiding spots, the biggest knife I could find in one hand, phone in the other. To be prepared, I had dialed 911, so all I had to do was push call if there really was an emergency. My mom told me later that the phone would automatically put the call through if it was to 911. I deemed the house clear, then looked at the phone. Only then did I realize I was in a call. Panicked, I just hung up. Of course, they called back. I let it ring for a while, then I figured it'd be worse if I didn't answer. I honestly explained to the person that I thought I heard sounds, dialed 911, didn't mean for the call to go through, then hung up because I was embarrassed. I assured her that everything was fine and begged her not to send anyone. In retrospect, that's probably why they sent someone. Except they didn't tell me they were sending anybody, so when I got a violent knock on my door, I answered it with the same knife behind my back. More than 10 years later, and I'm still embarrassed about the whole situation. This actually saved a woman in an episode of a true crime podcast I like. She had hit the silent alarm. The dispatcher called and she said everything was fine because the guy had a gun and the phone was on speaker. The dispatcher thought her voice sounded off, so sent the police. They surrounded the building and saved her within seconds of being choked to death. About giving the specific address, I know a lady who was a countrywide emergency dispatcher in the 70s, so before cell phones, GPS, and caller ID. Someone called in a house fire. The dispatcher asked for the address and the caller gave the name of the subdivision they lived in, but not the address. It was a tiny subdivision and the dispatcher was not familiar with the name. The caller hung up and called back a few minutes later, angry that the fire department was not arriving. The dispatcher asked again for the address. The caller gave the subdivision name again and hung up. The house ended up a total loss because the caller never gave the actual address. Story 2. Some credit cards cover accidental damage to electronics for a predefined period of time. Use those cards for buying computers and electronics. To add to this, unless you genuinely can't control your spending, you should absolutely have a credit card. The biggest reason is for fraud protection. If someone fraudulently uses your credit card number, they haven't actually touched your money. You tell the bank you see an unauthorized transaction, they cancel it and send you a new card. That's it. You won't be able to use the card for a couple of days while waiting for the new one, but the money in your account is safe. If they use your debit card number, they get the money in your bank account. The bank will probably give it back, but they don't have to if they decide it's your fault, and you will likely lose access to the account for a couple of days. Also, purchase protection. If you buy literally anything and the company fails to deliver, or the product you receive is garbage and the company refuses to help, chargebacks are super easy. Don't overuse it and always try to talk to the company first, but this is a great benefit. A few years ago, I pre-ordered a $600 item about 8 months in advance. When they were supposed to ship out, the company said they were behind schedule because of COVID. Then several months later declared bankruptcy and ceased to exist. I contacted the lawyer's office handling the bankruptcy and they said I wasn't getting my money back because there wasn't any. Filed a chargeback with the card I used, got my money back within a week. In addition to cash rewards some cards have, rental car damage coverage, free trip insurance, emergency medical coverage if you are traveling to another country, a warranty extension on certain products, roadside assistance, etc. If you can't qualify for one because you have no credit, start with a secured card to build credit. You deposit the money up front, so basically a debit card, and then you use it and pay it off as a credit card. My credit card covers 2 phone repairs a year as long as I pay my cell phone bill with it. It's a hassle to get the money reimbursed, but eventually they pay. The same insurance would cost me $50 a month for the family plan. There are a lot of benefits of credit cards that could be used that are in the fine print that we just don't follow up on and could be helpful. For instance, most cards will cover basic insurance coverage for rental cars, so you don't need to purchase it. Some cards will also double the manufacturer's warranty on certain products. Story 3. Don't drive if you haven't slept in the last 24 hours. A person who has been awake for 24 hours is as cognitively impaired as a person who is drunk. Paramedic here, one of the most terrifying things that happened to me in my career was exactly this. I was at a high-volume urban service, got asked to pull a 36-hour shift as my relief the next morning called out. We ran hard for about 33 or so of those hours, solid. A good majority of them were legit emergencies, including 2 cardiac arrests, if I remember correctly. Finally get back to the station, I went to bed in the squad bay, woke up at home, zero memory of the trip, sat bolt upright and had a full adrenaline dump, scared me half to death. Next shift asked around and I was told I looked pretty tired, so my partner did truck turnover and told me to go home. Found my uniform strewn in a line across my living room pointing towards the bedroom. Refused to pick up consecutive overtime on busy trucks after that. I did that in September, was on a cross-country road trip so I hadn't really slept. I felt myself getting really tired, but I was literally only about 10 miles away from my destination, so I tried to fight it. I didn't even realize I fell asleep. I was woken up by the crash, which was headfirst into a tree on the opposite side of the road. No idea how long I was asleep for, but I got extremely lucky to only need stitches. Driving tired very easily could have killed me, and I'm never rolling that dice again. I can't emphasize this enough. When I was going to school early and working late, I often drove tired. One time I was woken by the sound of my tires on the rumbling strips on the side of the road. It scared the living daylights out of me. I changed my habits after that. Story 4. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Note how there is no mention of using what you say to help you. A couple years ago, I was in a single car accident, slid off the road. No sign whatsoever that it could happen. Everything seemed dry. Responding officer wrote me a ticket for too fast for conditions. I was angry, so I decided to contest it. While I was waiting for the prosecutor to send me copies of the evidence they planned to use against me, I looked up the wording of the law I'd been cited under. It required that the driver had been acting negligently in regard to the conditions at the time. There was no rain or snow on the road, just cold and dry conditions on an 80-mile-per-hour speed limit interstate. In addition, I found some case law that said the mere fact that an accident occurred was insufficient to demonstrate negligence. Additional proof was required: distracted driving, excess speed, visible avoidable danger, etc. Then I get a copy of the citing officer's body cam with audio. In it, he had a conversation with another officer where he said, "I don't know why people are crashing. It doesn't look slick at all." So I had them. The law requires negligence. No negligence could be demonstrated, and the officer who decided to cite me traveled along the same stretch of road and likewise couldn't see anything to indicate reduced speed was needed. Cost me more than just paying the ticket would have, but it was satisfying to push back against someone who clearly just thought everyone they interacted with needs a ticket. True, but the prosecution attorney is supposed to actively seek out material to help the defense. Brady Material Rule, Supreme Court ruling in 1963. Unfortunately, the judgment of what could help the defense can be subjective. This applies to US law. Not sure how things are in other countries, but for sure know your rights. I watched an interrogation video on YouTube where the suspect just kept saying, "You have no proof I did anything because I didn't do anything. I want a lawyer." He was completely within his rights. Story 5. If you're outside during a storm and get a metallic taste in your mouth for seemingly no reason, then you're about to get struck by lightning. The best thing to reduce the amount of damage to your body is to squat down while on your tippy toes and cover your head/back of your neck with your hands. If you're going to get struck, then you need to have as little contact with the ground as possible. Since you'll be grounded, the lightning will be using your body as a channel to get to the ground, and the more surface area of your body that is touching the ground, then the more damage it will do. A lot of people have heard that lightning strikes higher points, so they think to lay on the ground to get as low as possible. This is absolutely what not to do, since your entire body is now in contact with the ground. That would result in your entire body taking damage since you're touching the ground from head to toe. Figure out a way to remove your contact with the ground. Things with rubber tires are good. I was once biking during a thunderstorm and had lightning strike real close to where I was. I felt a very small jolt of electricity pass from the bike through my arm. Sometimes I wonder what life would have been like if I had not been on the bike with rubber tires between me and the ground. Not a lot though. I find it's best not to look back too much in life at things like that. That would have to be a split-second decision because you don't have the luxury of time. Story 6. You always think you're going to have more time. You won't. Make the most of today. That said, making the most of today may mean taking a nap and chilling. Every life needs recharge moments. Hustle culture and team no sleep are toxic. Get it done. Live an amazing life and love those that are good to you. But take downtime for yourself or life will make sure you take it. My mother is being moved to hospice tomorrow. Stage 4 lung and bone cancer. She was clear of cancer in January. No history of cancer in the family. Large cell and very fast. 3.5 weeks ago, she was riding on a trail ride. Then they found cancer cells in a test. She thought she had a sinus infection. She was heading to the truck for her first round of chemo when she passed out and my dad had to drag her into the truck and get to the ER. They spent the last week trying to get her healthy enough for chemo. They said it just spread too fast. So now she is going into hospice. We have a 10-week-old son. I am grateful she got to meet him, and we are giving her as much baby therapy as possible every time she is up to visit. Every other day so far. But it sucks. I am 47 and not ready to lose my mom yet. It sucks. You will never regret the time spent together, but you will the time you didn't. Make that call. Take that visit. Can confirm. Enjoying life means different things to different people. It could mean hang gliding or zip lining. It could mean sitting on the beach with your toes in the sand. It could mean collecting squishmallows or putting together Lego sets. Do what gives you joy. Story 7. Read. It can help you regain your ability to focus on a single task for an extended period of time. It can also cultivate creativity and expand your worldview. It's so hard to focus on a book for me. It's insane. I actually did just finish a book from start to finish for the first time in a long time last weekend, but it was a young adult novel that I read as a kid and wanted to see how it held up, so doubt that counts very much. I gotta find other stuff to read. Maybe the lack of reading over the years is the cause for not being able to focus on a book long enough to finish it. My fried attention span brain scrolled past this comment halfway through reading it before I scrolled back up to finish it. I need to read a book. Young adult books count, and so do audiobooks. Some people have reading problems like dyslexia, and audiobooks are very helpful in that regard. Enjoy the story. That's the point. Story 8. If you get a burst of floaters in your eye and see a curtain-like vision cut moving in from the side, top, or bottom, you may have a detached retina and have to get to an eye doctor ASAP, as you could lose vision in the affected area. This is a highly characteristic pattern of vision loss that is caused by the retina peeling away from the back of your eye. It's a medical emergency, but it is highly treatable. If you have a high correction for myopia, you are at increased risk for it. Tends to happen in middle age or later as a consequence of vitreous separation. I had it happen in both my eyes while in my middle 50s. I know 2 people who this happened to I met within the last 5 years. It's not that rare if you already are significantly myopic. One of them was a result of getting hit in football with very nearsighted eyes though, -10 to -11 range. As someone who is equally nearsighted and with weird eye fears, thanks Saw 2, it's been an obsession of mine for a while. I've had both ocular migraines and retinal detachments. The retinal detachments, both eyes a year apart, were less starry looking than my ocular migraines field cuts. Also, there was a very sharp, straight edge to the curtain-like blind spot in my retinal detachments. Also tons of floaters and even visible blood in my eye. Felt like I was seeing through sand dispersed in a gel. Also hurt really bad, like ice pick pressure with the migraine. A real sharp ache. My friend had a vitreous separation that caused a bleed and sparks, but did not get a detachment with it. If you get any of this stuff happen, just haul yourself to an eye doctor and do whatever they say to do. I've had ocular migraines. It usually starts with a small area of vision that looks like a flash spot after somebody takes a picture of you. Then it increases in size, and then there are zigzag patterns that expand. When I have this, I take a couple Tylenol and go lay down in a dark room. I'm not saying that's what you should do. If you have this for the first time or have any change in vision, including if straight lines start looking wavy, call your doctor. Seriously, don't wait. Story 9. Tell the cops nothing. Tell the paramedics everything. Boosting the second part. Everything. What drugs, where you got them, how much, who gave them to you, their name, your dog's name. They have stressful lives and will appreciate it. They aren't police and just want to help you and go home. Tell them about the gun so they know they can be safe. They are master lie detectors and you are too high or drunk or stupid to get one past them. More often than not, their questions are there to confirm what they already know. Respect paramedics. They study like doctors, get paid like retail retail workers and work longer hours than either. Don't ever call them ambulance drivers. Sort of related, tell your vet what drugs and how much your animal got into. We're not going to report you, but we need to know how to treat your pet. We see so many that get into their owner's stash, but delaying that information delays help for your friend. Health is everything, and the pros need to have all the information to make the best decision they can. Story 10. If you fall into cold water, the ocean, don't immediately try and swim. Lay on your back and try to control your breathing. The cold temperature will take your breath away and you will initially take small, quick breaths. You need to slow down your breathing as quickly as possible so your lungs can fill with air. Once you have done that, you will find it easier to float. If you go into less than 50-degree Fahrenheit water, you will immediately experience cold shock and attempt to gasp for air, which can lead to inhaling water and drowning. If you are not wearing specially designed protective clothing, dry suits, thick full-body wetsuits, anti-exposure coveralls, etc., you have around 3 minutes of usable motion to get yourself into a floating position or the heat escape lessening position. Help, you have 1 to 2 hours of consciousness and about 6 hours of survival time in the best conditions. If you have anything useful, knives, personal locator beacons, ice awls, etc., that could help you get out of the water, clench it tightly in your hand as it will remain in a closed fist and you may still be able to use it. Remember that a standard personal flotation device will not turn you upright if you lose consciousness. While working or boating where cold water immersion is a danger, always wear hypothermia protective clothing and dress for the water, not for the air. I heed you the warning that I have recovered the bodies of individuals who froze to death while it was 80 degrees Fahrenheit outside. Also, if you're stuck in a riptide or feel like the current is pulling you out to sea, swim with it and keep the coastline in your vision. You will eventually not be in the riptide anymore and will be able to successfully swim back to shore. Fighting the riptide will only wear you out to the point where you will likely drown. Yikes. That creates a whole lot of scary images for me. Essential info, yes, but scary. Story 11. Always wear closed-toed shoes and long pants in and near wooded areas. Check yourself for ticks on your clothing or on your dog. Lyme disease is no joke. I know someone who developed an allergy to meat because of a tick bite. A tick literally can take away your bacon. That's not a bug, that's a monster. Get your dog vaccinated for Lyme, especially if you live in endemic areas or if you're going to be taking your dog to places where Lyme disease is more common. I've unfortunately seen dogs that have been faithfully on the good prescription flea/tick medications still get Lyme disease, and keep them on heartworm, flea, and tick medications year-round in general. Cats can get heartworm diseases like dogs, but it's much more difficult to detect and treat. Often, cats will present with sudden respiratory distress and/or death. Fleas and mosquitoes can come inside your house, and fleas can establish an infestation on your unprotected cat or dog. We can bring them in and not even know it. Just because you treat your yard doesn't mean everyone else in the world does. Lyme disease can also be difficult to diagnose sometimes, and in the meantime of getting the diagnosis figured out, the disease can progress. A friend of mine was in that situation and spent a very long time in the hospital. Story 12. When you decide to sober up, be prepared to lose many people you thought were your friends. It also works the opposite. When you're an addict, be prepared to lose a lot of the people who love you. Happened to my stepbrother. Lost almost all of his friends. He actually had to cut one friend out of his life because the guy wouldn't respect his efforts to get sober and kept pestering and guilting him to go drinking with him. He's been sober for almost 10 years now, owns his own business, has made new friends, and developed a lifelong love of cats. This is full of truths, all of it. Addiction is prevalent and dangerous to healthy relationships. Also, in my humble opinion, cats are awesome. Story 13. 3 bits of medical advice from old jobs. Strokes can come on very quickly. If someone has a sharp headache or feels woozy or is slurring their speech and you don't believe that's due to any substance they've ingested, ask them to smile. Is it even on both sides? Ask them to raise their arms over their head. Can they raise both? Ask them to say, "The early bird gets the worm." Are any words garbled, out of order, or slurred? If the smile, arms, or speech are not as they usually are, get them to the hospital quick. Sepsis can come on very quickly, an infection entering your bloodstream. Could be a cut, a boil, a piercing, an infected tooth, graze, or puncture wound. If the skin around the cut or wound is red and raised, hot to the touch. If the person feels nauseous, lightheaded, or dizzy. If they have a fever or are sweating but feel cold, this could be a sign of a more serious infection. Get them to a hospital. Heart attack isn't always pain in the chest. It can also feel like a sharp stabbing pain in the upper back, above the shoulder blade, or like an iron bar around the lungs as opposed to pains in the heart. Get help as soon as you can. You're not being dramatic, I promise. Always better to seek medical help as soon as you can. Good pieces of advice. I am in my late 30s and woke up early one morning with what felt like horrible indigestion and pain in my upper back. I tried to go back to bed for probably an hour and the pain just wasn't stopping and felt like it was spreading throughout my shoulders. Drove myself to the hospital and got checked out. Had an ECG and a scan. Turns out it was just bad indigestion, but being a woman, I have always heard those symptoms can indicate a heart attack, and I did not feel silly at all for getting it checked out. Had sepsis from untreated STD. Doc said, had I waited a few more hours, I could have been dead. It really didn't feel like anything other than being sick, except I had erythema nodosum. I don't even know what that is, and it caused all my joints to swell. Worst pain of my entire life. I couldn't move. Sepsis will mess you all up. 2 points. 1. Symptoms of a heart attack can be different for women, including chest pain or discomfort, shortness of breath, pain or discomfort in the jaw, neck, back, arm, or shoulder, feeling nauseated, lightheaded, or unusually tired. I went to the ER because of the tiredness symptom, and it turns out I was anemic, but I'm not sorry I went. Also, I can concur that sepsis is life-threatening. A family member was in a coma because of it. We're lucky she made it. Story 14. Always ask for the name of people who assist you over the phone or counter. It amazes me how often I need to re-engage with that same company on the same issue, and being able to quote the name of the person who last helped you will short-circuit the process and save you a lot of time and bother trying to explain yourself over and over. I learned this in my late teens. I would call the local car dealership to make an appointment, and every time I would go in for the appointment, they could never find it. Then they would ask who I spoke with, and of course I didn't remember, so they would have to work me in, and I'd be there for hours. After the second time, I started writing down the name of the person I spoke with. The next time they pulled that, I said, "Can I speak to name?" And suddenly they found my appointment. Yep, as much as we try to live in an automated age, nothing beats dealing with real humans who can actually remember helping you out the last time. I am notoriously bad at remembering this, and it has hindered me. On the other side of the coin, when I worked in an office, there was one company that would call and try to record us saying yes to any question, so it would sound like we were agreeing to buy their product. They would also ask our name to confirm it. Whenever I thought it was a scam, I would give a fake name. Always the same fake name in case it would come back later that it was legitimate and I could confirm the call. Story 15. If a baby's crying in pain and you can't figure out why, there's a good chance they have a muscle cramp. Like if their big toe is turned down and won't move, then they probably have a cramp in their foot. I found that stretching the cramped muscle makes it go away almost immediately. So for the foot cramp, you just grab their big toe and gently but firmly pull their toe up away from the cramp. The cramp will resist at first, and that's why you have to be firm. But once you get past that, the cramp and the pain are gone. Then hold the stretch position for a minute to make sure the cramp doesn't immediately come back. I also like to put them on the tops of my thighs with their feet facing my stomach. Then I push their knees to their chest and gently rock them from side to side. I have rarely had a baby continue fussing through that. I've had 4 kids and have helped a ton of friends with their fussy little ones too. I also saw a story where a baby had a hair wrapped around her big toe and it was cutting off circulation and making her cry. If your baby is crying and you've tried everything else, undress them and check them over. I would give my baby tiny shoulder and back massages on occasion. It seemed to soothe her and fill the touch sensation that helps connect baby and parent. Also, for cramping, you can give the baby some water for hydration. Story 16. If you're ever in a survival situation where you have to forage for food, don't bother looking for mushrooms. The likelihood of finding an edible species that won't make you sick or kill you is so astronomically low that it's better to just spend that time looking for roots, berries, and herbs. Berries and herbs have no better chance of being edible, and many of them are absolutely as deadly. Insects are actually the safest and most accessible bet. Insects are high in protein and carbohydrates, and most people know how to tell a grasshopper from a black widow. Experienced foragers die from berry and plant mis-IDs. You want to still cook insects to avoid parasite infection, just like any meat, but they're safe and simple to catch. Black ants, grasshoppers, and crickets, and beetle grubs are very easy bets in most of the US. Meat and eggs too, but those can be tricky if you've never hunted or fished. Again, cook well. The other strategy, and it's a good one, is find water. Always the first thing you should do before anything else, and a way to sterilize it. And find food you think should be safe. And then just don't eat unless you have to. The chances of long-term survival situation in the US are slim, and people in the US are not. We have GPS on literally everything, and our bodies are made pudgy by years of easy living. Most Americans could probably survive about 5 days without needing food with fairly few long-term ill effects. Get ready to have to forage, but I recommend putting off eating any wild vegetation or fauna until like day 3, cause you're likely to be found before then. And it's better if they found a living version of you than the dead person that somehow ate Jimson weed and tripped and pooped yourself to death. You certainly don't live in Sweden. Learning about the dozens of lovely edible mushrooms that thrive in our autumn forests is part of the school curriculum. Yes, to be fair, some people know more than others about the edibility of local flora and fauna, but me, I don't go that far into the forest to need the knowledge, but if I ever survive a plane crash into a forest, I'm pretty much done for. Story 17. Having a baby will not fix your awful relationship. On the other hand, my partner and I have to be more efficient in our conflict resolution because there is only so much time to discuss things without the kids around, and we have to make sure we don't have a stupid spat in front of them. I think the advice still stands, but there are some perks to the relationship too. Also, don't stay together for the kids. Bitter married parents are worse than amicable divorced parents. Very much so. Even healthy relationships can have moments of tension and disagreements that can stress the kids out. If the environment is unhealthy or worse, toxic or abusive, then the kids are better off learning what life is like without the constant state of tension and negativity. Additionally, never put your kids in the middle of the divorce. Don't use them as a way of communicating. Don't argue through them. Don't turn them against their other parent. Story 18. Take care of your teeth, or you'll pay not only monetarily but in excruciating pain, worse than natural childbirth pain. Brush, floss, see your dentist, don't sip soda all day, and for God's sake, don't use your teeth to cut thread or open bottles. Skip meth at all if possible. This is your best advice you will ever get, I swear to you. Just want to piggyback at this one to suggest one of my favorite life hacks, brushing and flossing in the shower. I used to have terrible dental hygiene until I started doing this. Started using floss picks and have since graduated to one of those rechargeable water picks. My dentist sings my praises every time I go in for checkup now. It's too late for me. I only have 6 top teeth left and I need a bunch of fillings. I didn't see a dentist for years after losing my Medicaid, and I had a lot of depression eating where I was stuffing my face with sugary foods and drinking 5 Pepsis a day. It took until I was 30 to get myself together. Losing teeth is horrible and my dentist was a jerk. Luckily, I switched to a different dentist and everyone there was so compassionate and not judgmental. It's a night and day difference. Now I'm on the long road to getting this situation worked out. If you need a reminder to make a dentist appointment or to establish good dental habits, here it is. Also mentioned in the comments was that toothpaste does come in other flavors, such as cinnamon, if that's what you don't like about brushing. It's harder to find, but maybe you could order it delivered. Story 19. I have saved literally thousands of dollars in auto repairs by watching YouTube videos and also finding my car's service manual online. Free knowledge like that is the best thing about the internet. Yep, washer for me. Found the part that might be broken, checked, bought a replacement for $10 and fixed it myself after watching a video. Still rocking along 8 years later. My husband and I call it University of YouTube, and it has saved us lots of money and lots of time. If you're even slightly handy and have basic tools, there are a lot of repairs in your home and car that you can do yourself. There are accounts that can also show you what tools you might need and how to use those tools too. Easy to search. I looked up types of saws and ended up choosing a circular saw for a project. Don't forget to watch and heed the advice about safety precautions as well. The ones I watched also explained the mistakes he had made, like accidentally cutting the power cord in two. It was very helpful. Story 20. While driving, maintain a minimum 3-second gap between your car and the car in front. Pick a stationary reference point like a bridge or lamp post. When the car in front passes it, count 1001, 1002, 1003. If you pass the reference point before you finish counting, you are too close to react in an emergency situation. Back off the gas and increase the distance. In bad weather, increase the count to 4 or 5. If folks on my commute would have even a solid 1 second, I'd be happy. Anything more than 2 is ludicrous, it seems, and they can't do it. It's quite funny. If you do this in my city, someone from a different lane will move into yours. It drives me insane. Going 35 miles per hour or 55 kilometers, you can't have more than 2 car distance. 4 to 6 seconds for speeds under 30 miles per hour and 6 to 8 seconds for speeds 31 plus is the rule for UPS drivers. Of course, having a vehicle with a lot of weight makes it more difficult to stop quickly, which is why you should never cut off an 18-wheeler. If you stop quickly, they can't, and will plow right into you because physics doesn't care about manners. Thanks for watching until the end. I hope some of these stories were helpful to you. If you have any advice or a similar story that you would like to share, please leave it in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please leave us a like and subscribe. For more videos like this one right now, please stop by our channel. Thanks again, and see you next time.